Hey, and happy Monday. Need a little bit more of that oil. I'm really oiling up today because while I love sharing my healing story, because spoiler alert, it ends well. Here we are. And it's not even over yet, really. Let's be real. But there's positive outcomes to it. It's a hard journey to share about, but it's an important one because you all deserve to know, right? And let's normalize sharing our story. It's healing, it's therapeutic, and I would say 9 times out of 10, or maybe even 10 out of 10, that's an unofficial Adele statistic. It's necessary for your healing, whatever your story is. So mine is a lot of things, but primarily, and today I was sharing about a Lyme disease and co-infection journey to healing. Really, that could be the title of my memoir, right? But no, it's really an important journey. And this month, if you didn't know, is Lyme Disease Awareness Month in the month of May. And I knew that was my sign to start sharing my story more and more. Some of it's out there. Most of it is honestly out there in bits and pieces. So you can still find some of it, but I am condensing it through this month. Every Monday, I will be going live with parts of my story in chronological order because it makes the most sense, I think, at least, subject to change if necessary. But I want you to hear from me what it was like, what I went through, and how it's going now, which is, like I said, the kind of most important part. Okay, so if you are on YouTube catching this live or the replay, please like and subscribe. You will not miss any of my story and other videos and content I have planned for you this month in honor of Lyme Disease Awareness Month. It's a huge month in my world. Check the description in this video too. If you're not already in my free holistic healing community, get over there. We're having so much fun. That's where a majority of my content can be found. Again, for free. There's trainings, there's guides, there's encouragement, and lots of healing approaches in there. And I also am rolling out a huge Lyme healing program for the world of Lyme community, worldwide Lyme community, which is the title is Design Your Holistic Lyme Healing Blueprint. And it is literally that. It is the blueprint that I used and additions to it that I wish I had known about when I was going through healing at certain stages along the way. So it is like my healing journey on steroids, like rocket boosters, because steroids are not great for Lymies. So we won't talk about those, but we'll talk about rocket boosters to healing. Because I felt like it needed to be put out there. So my disclaimer to that program and to this video is I'm not a Lyme provider. I'm not a medical provider. I'm not here to treat, cure, diagnose, or otherwise chat medical stuff. Go to your trusted provider for all of that. But I'm here to share, coach, educate, and advocate for this Lyme world we live in. It is a pandemic. It is by the government and the medical community largely unrecognized as such, which is a shame after all we've been through as a society over the past few years here. But the reality of it is it doesn't have to stop us from healing. If you identify as one of us Lyme warriors with co-infections or Lyme disease yourself, tick-borne illness, vector-borne illness, all hope is not lost. The government doesn't get to tell us how well we can do with this illness. We don't have to let rules and regulations and misinformation stop us. And that's the purpose of my mission, okay? Healing is possible. Empowerment and peace around your healing is possible. And my motto is you can embrace, excel in, and even enjoy the journey to healing. So you'll see bits and pieces of that from my own story. And I hope that if it resonates with you, you'll reach out and we can chat about where you're at. And I want to celebrate your wins and I want to celebrate your journey along the way too. So my journey started over 20 years ago. I'm not going to make anyone do the math. I'm 35 currently. So 15 years old is roughly when my journey came to a head. It actually started a few years prior to that. Like I said, over 20 years ago, around the age, and yes, some of this is a little fuzzy because I wasn't paying attention necessarily to the timeline until it started to matter, right? I just knew I was getting sick sometime after my 13th birthday, around 13, 14 years old. I started to decline medically. And what was tricky about that, it was right before I hit high school. I remember that it was right around like the eighth grade year. Um, I actually, well, yes, I'll say that for now. Um, actually, what's tricky about all of this is I had had some tick bites between my sixth and seventh grade year. Probably I think I remember even having more tick bites as a kid. Like they weren't a thing. I live in central Pennsylvania, grew up here. Everyone got bit by ticks, and we knew about Lyme disease, but it wasn't a thing. I didn't know anyone that had it. I never knew like we could actually get it. I thought if you got it, you would know clearly that you had it. It was just not on our radar back then, not anyone's radar. Um, and I had some tick bites then and got really sick shortly after my tick bites with your classic example of Lyme disease. I actually got the classic example of Lyme disease, which caveat does not often happen or always happen. You don't always get a bullseye rash, a fever. You don't always feel bad right away or necessarily ever. You sometimes can have very different symptoms of Lyme disease, and that's what makes it really tricky. But I had classic Lyme disease symptoms and went misdiagnosed. I was seen by my doctor multiple times. They kept bringing me back for lab work. I was a mystery until I wasn't. They ran all kinds of lab work, supposedly Lyme included in that because I did have the bullseye rash and they did think about it, but they ran all kinds of autoimmune labs on me around the sixth or seventh grade year, in my seventh grade year. And I was negative for everything, they said. That's the words they use, negative for everything except Fifth's disease. They found Fifth's disease, which is one of the 5 childhood illnesses like chickenpox, measles, mumps, rubella. Fifth's disease is the 5th one. And they just said I had a really extreme case of it and it would run its course and I would get better. And I kind of did. I did get better and we didn't think anything more of it. We never asked to check the lab results ourselves. We just didn't know. We didn't know. My doctor didn't know. And it was kind of unfortunate that it got overlooked. So now fast forward a couple years. So that was around entering 7th grade. And then by the time I was about 14, I was entering 13 into 14 as I was going into high school. I got really sick again. I don't remember if something perpetuated that or if I just started on a downward spiral. That's kind of what I remember. It just felt gross and yucky and flu-y and sick. And I didn't know what was going on. I was an athlete. I was an um, academic. I was thankfully homeschooled. Actually, saved my butt because I was able to adjust for how I felt and do school at odd hours to get it done so that I could try to recover. But I wasn't recovering. I was just getting worse. I had to quit all my athletics because I physically couldn't do it. I thought I was just getting burned out in ninth grade, like before I even hit high school level sports. But the reality was I was learning how to listen to my body and I couldn't figure it all out myself, but I knew something wasn't right. And thankfully, my parents started to catch on, and my mom really became an advocate next to me because she knew this wasn't Adele. Like, this wasn't my normal. I was outgoing and energetic and healthy and vibrant. And now I was like a puddle of what I once was. I couldn't get out of bed, I couldn't sleep enough. I mean, I'm talking like up to 20 hours a day in bed. I'm talking falling asleep, going to bed in the hallway, on the stairs. Like, not diagnosed narcoleptic, but that kind of behavior. And all that to say, I was not well. I was on the edge of being bedridden. I was practically bedridden and nearly non-functional compared to my normal. I was starting down the path as well of autoimmune diagnoses because where else did we turn? We went to our doctors. We tried to find out why I had all these aches and pains and the exhaustion that I had and the why I was pale and my heart rate was all over the place and my blood pressure was in the toilet and my gut health was all out of whack. Nothing in our lifestyle had changed except my health had changed. A complete change. And I knew in my heart of hearts, I was headed for nothing good. And I fully expected that I was going to be dead at a young age because I didn't understand what was happening to me. And all I knew was I was getting worse and worse, and it was getting scarier and scarier, and no one could help me. Infectious disease told me to take an ibuprofen and go for a walk every day. Nothing was wrong with me. Rheumatology couldn't find anything wrong except autoimmune diagnoses that they couldn't treat. They couldn't help me with. And every medication they tried to put me on gave me so many side effects, I had to go off of it. And I was just loading up diagnosis after diagnosis on my chart because, well, now you've got Raynaud's, and now you've got chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, psoriatic arthritis, and psoriasis, sacroiliac joint dysfunction. No, we don't know why you have a swollen joint. Well, we'll tap it and we'll test that fluid. That's negative. You need surgery on this joint, and you need rehabilitation for that joint. And we can't explain why your ankles and knees and wrists and elbows are so bad. They're always sprained, and even though you're not doing anything. And we can't explain why you can't socialize or think straight or walk straight or not pass out every time you stand up. But here, take some sodium tablets, and here, try this and try that. And oh, it doesn't work. Try this, try that. Oh, that doesn't work. Never mind that you're not sleeping to rest, to rehabilitate your body. And a lot of these doctors meant well, and they just didn't know, and we didn't know. So what changed? Well, something changed around the time I was about 15 into 16 years old. We finally had more lab work done and Lyme tests run by our PCP that were crappy Lyme tests, right? Western blot, whatever, but it was positive. And it was chronic by antibodies at that point. And my doctor started to believe it. And he put me on a month of doxycycline oral that made me feel like poop, right? But now we had knowledge, and knowledge with action is power. And this is the point when some of my empowerment started to manifest alongside my mother's, since I was still dependent and she was still helping me through this. So stay tuned when we tackle part 2 of this month's Story of My Life series, Story of My Lyme Journey, because it's been over half my life now by a long shot that I've gone through this. And we're just now getting to the good part when things started to change. I'll catch you next week for the next part. And make sure you hop into my Limey and Crunchy community so you don't miss any of our month-long celebration of Lyme Disease Awareness Month, where we're going to celebrate the empowerment and peace and enjoyment you can have on your healing journey. Don't believe me? That's okay.